Episode 84, May 31, 1915. I was London's first separator, by Major Erich Linnarz. Read by Michel Admiraal. Major Linnarz, who was commander of Zeppelin LZ38, had been 4 times over England before. On May 31, 1915, he succeeded in reaching London. This was London's first air raid, and Major Linnarz dropped 119 bombs on Leytonstone, Stoke Newington, Whitechapel, Stepney and Shoreditch. The casualties were 7 killed and 35 injured. He described in this historic narrative his sensations throughout the journey and raid. While he was returning, he was attacked by anti-aircraft guns and 9 British pilots, but succeeded in making his escape. On the evening of May 31, 1915, the sun, setting behind the Zeppelin sheds at Brussels Havre, smeared the sky with crimson streaks as though fingers dripped in blood had been drawn across the horizon. 16 years before, there had been an international conference at The Hague. 44 powers were represented on that occasion. It was a year before flight in the air, by any means whatever, except balloons, was accomplished. One of the results of this conference was a decision to prohibit the launching of projectiles or explosives from balloons or other kinds of aerial vessels by nations at war. A manifesto to this effect was drawn up, but only 27 of 44 powers represented signed it. Germany was not one. In August 1914, the drums of war sounded over Europe, and, with the staccato rattle of machine guns and the growl of howitzers, there mingled for the first time the whine of hurtling aerial bombs. There had been many discussions at German headquarters since the outbreak of the war, before it was decided to use the Zeppelin and its bombs as a weapon of war against British towns. So far, the raiding Zeppelins had been used only on the Western Front and for the purposes of naval reconnaissance. It was not until January 1915 that the Kaiser at last sanctioned the bombing of England, and not until 4 months later that he was prevailed upon by his advisers to give his consent to attacking London. The proud ship LZ38, the latest product of Count Zeppelin's works at Friedrichshafen on Lake Constance, which I commanded, was one of those detailed for the job. On the morning of May 31, orders in cipher were brought from us from Berlin to me at Brussels to raid London. Preparations for the flight were carried out all that day. Engines were tested, ballast tanks examined, the radio apparatus thoroughly overhauled, and the huge, deflated envelope closely inspected for flaws. Presently there was the hiss of gas, and slowly the monster took a more rigid shape. Then the bomb racks were loaded. 119 bombs there were in all. 89 incendiary, 30 high explosive ones. 1.5 tons of death. As the pespering soldiers wheeled the infernal things on trucks, before placing them in position, the setting sun sank behind the shed and stained the sky with a deeper and more ominous red. My crew, clad in their leather jackets and fur helmets, were standing in groups on the landing ground. A siren sounded shrilly, and they moved to the shed, entered the gondola and took up their posts. Gently guided by ropes, the ship slid smoothly forward. The sounding of a second siren indicated that the ship was clear of its shed. "Hands off! Ease the guides!" I shouted. The men at the ropes let go. Great eddies of dust swept through the air as the final test to the mammoth propellers was given. An officer approached and told me all was ready. I stepped in, gave a signal, and mysteriously the ship soared upwards. We were on our way to London. From my cabin, with its softer lit dials, everyone with a story to tell, its maps, its charts, and compass, I could hear the rhythmic throb of the engines, feel the languorous swing of the gondola as we rode smoothly through space. Over invaded Belgium we flew. Here it was that one of my crew at the helm reported that he had sighted what he thought to be a hostile airship approaching. For safety, I altered course and steered in the direction of Ostend. Often, raiding Zeppelins on their way out from Belgium to England encountered enemy aircraft endeavoring to intercept their passage. But as it afterwards turned out, this one was only Captain Lehman, who was killed in an airship crash in America last year on one of the other Zeppelin's details to raid England. He had left Namur earlier, also with London as his aim, but over the channel he had broken a propeller, which had pierced his gas bag and forced him to return to his base. He was on his way back when we saw him. None of the other ships reached London that night, but discharged their bombs on East Coast towns. On we sped. It was a beautiful night, a night with star-spangled skies and gentle breezes, a night hard to reconcile with the purpose as grim as ours. And then the glimmer of water showed below, and we knew we were over the sea. Tiny red specks wingled at us. They were patrol boats keeping their ceaseless watch over the channel, and we were looking down their funnels into the glowing heart of their stokehold furnaces. England. We crossed the black ridge of the coast. Immediately from below, anti-aircraft guns spat viciously. We could hear the shells screaming past us. We increased our altitude and our speed. Across the Thames estuary we raced, wheeling inland at Shoreditch, over Southend, which I had raided the week before. And then, following the gleaming river, we made straight for the capital. 20 minutes later, we were over London. There below us, with its great expanse, lay spread. I knew it all so well. I had spent several months there 5 years before. There seemed to have been little effort to dim the city. There were the old familiar landmarks, St. Paul's, the Houses of Parliament and Buckingham Palace, dreaming in the light of the moon which had now risen. I glanced at the clock. It was 10 minutes to 11. The quivering altimeter showed that our height was 10,000 feet. The air was keen, and we buttoned our jackets as we prepared to deal the first blow against the heart of your great and powerful nation. Inside the gondola it was pitch dark, save for the glowing pointers of the dials. The sliding shutters of the electric lamps, with which each one of the crew was provided, were drawn. There was tension as I leaned out of one of the gondola portholes and surveyed the lacework of lighted streets and squares. An icy wind lashed my face. I mounted the bombing platform. My finger hovered on the button that electrically operated the bombing apparatus. Then I pressed it. We waited. Minutes seemed to pass before, above the humming song of the engines, there was a shattering roar. Was it fancy that there also leaped from far below the faint cries of tortured souls? I pressed again. A A cascade of orange sparks shot upwards, and a billow of incandescent smoke drifted slowly away to reveal a red gash of raging fire on the face of the wounded city. One by one, every 30 seconds the bombs moaned and burst. Flames sprung up like serpents goaded to attack. Taking one of the biggest fires, I was able by it to estimate my speed and my drift. Besides me, my second in command carefully watched the result of every bomb and made rapid calculations on the navigation chart. Suddenly from the depths great swords of light stepped the sky. One caught the gleam of the aluminium of our gondola, passed it, retraced, caught it again, and then held us in its beam. Instantly the other chased across the sky, and we found ourselves moving through an endless sea of dazzling light. Inside the gondola it was brighter than sunlight. Every detail of the car was thrown into sharp relief. The crew at their post looked like a set of actors, grouped in the limelight without their makeup. And so began a game of hide and seek in the sky. The helmsman and I tried every way of eluding the searchlights, practicing every trick of navigation. Then came the bark of batteries. Shells shrieked past us, above us, below us. There were glowing tracer shells, which we had never seen before but had heard all about. Slim projectiles that tore a hole in the ship's fabric and then burst into flames. It was this thought that sent us home quickly. We had been over London for an hour. Soon we left the thrusting searchlight behind. We could see ahead of us the sea, through which the moon had laid a silver path to guide us home. As we crossed the black ridge of the shore, we were met with a further attack from the anti-aircraft guns at Burnham and Southminster. I think our gondola light, now alight and casting a feeble glow over the cabin, perhaps had betrayed us. I put it out. Shell after shell whistled past, some of them the dreaded incendiary type. Some burst dangerously near. On we flew, and at last we were out of range, and the firing died down. Now a new menace touched us, aeroplanes. We went in dread of these, since your pilots had orders that if they failed to reach us with machine gun fire, they were to climb above us and ram our gas bags with their machines. Evidently, the supreme sacrifice meant nothing to these brave men. One by one they came from airfields that had been established round the coast to intercept returning raiders. My lookout thought he spotted one flying towards us. Higher we rose, out of reach. The British aeroplanes were faster than we were, but they couldn't reach our height limit. Presently, in the fading moonlight, we could see the waves beating against the Belgian coastline far below. We were feeling cold and hungry, exhausted and spent from the high-pitched hours of that night. Rather like the remorseful reveler returning in the hours before dawn. It was almost dawn. The first vague light was edging the horizon as we fled over invaded Belgium. We had been away 10 hours. The first attack on London had been accomplished. Our bomb rack was empty. Behind us we could faintly make out the red glow of fire in the sky's rim. It was ravaged London. As we sank to the earth and the gondola bumped across the landing ground at Brussels Evere, the sun, rising in front of the sheds, smeared the sky with crimson streaks, as through fingers dipped in blood had been drawn across the horizon.
Wipe the sleep, baby, tear from your eye. Though it's hard to and again. As the train moved out, he said, remember me to all the birds, though he wagged his paw and went away to war, shouting out these pathetic words. Goodbye, goodbye, when the tale may begin from your eye. Oh, it's hard to part, I know. I'll be tickled to death, I go, don't cry.